Hey guys, Manir here. I'm going to be revealing my weirdest habits that have made me profitable in trading. I see a lot of content talking about the top habits that you need to be a successful trader. The ones such as discipline, wake up early, cold baths, blah, blah, blah. Now this video is going to be none of those basic ones. I'm going to be going into my weirdest habits that I've developed over my 6-year journey from losing money to running 10 automated strategies that generate me 6 figures almost every single year. Here's just an example of one of those strategies. Now, before we get into the first one, let me just make my camera a bit smaller so I can zoom in. And let's get rid of this big red box. Now, the first one is I keep a high and low journal. Now, this isn't a classic trading journal. Everyone normally tells you about that. I'm talking about recording my highs and lows throughout my trading journey. So this would cover the euphoric moments when a strategy works perfectly and the crushing lows when everything seems to fall apart. Now, why is this actually very powerful? Well, when you're in a drawdown, and you will be, every single trader will have a drawdown, whether that be a couple of days, a week, months, maybe even a year. You can now look back and see what you've been through before. At least for me, I can now see how fast these come and go and how regular they can be. It stops you from making emotional decisions during tough periods because you have proof this too shall pass. Now, as cringy as it may be, one day maybe I'll get this tattooed because, at least from my experience right now, this is always so true. You'll have amazing periods during trading where you feel like everything's going well, and you'll have periods of trading where everything feels extremely frustrating. And I think some people believe this is only during the unprofitable stages. That is not true at all. I've been profitable for a couple of years now, and I still have similar issues or feelings. Now, they may not be as drastic as me completely losing, all my money or something like that, but there will be times where I've had a strategy work for many months, maybe 4 or 5 months, and it looks amazing, and then there's a really rough month. Can be a really good way to see how those come and go. Now, the second one, if we just scroll down here, is I purposely add latency to my backtests. Now, you might be wondering, why in the hell would I do this? Most traders make their backtest look as good as possible, and I do the complete opposite. I deliberately slow down my execution times, add extra slippage, and see how much my performance degrades. This habit has saved me from deploying dozens of great backtests that would have failed miserably. Now, the reason I do this is to see how much pain, in quotation marks, my strategy can take before it breaks. And when you're doing backtesting, a lot of the time you're trying to fight overfitting, and you really want to see, is this strategy something that can last on live markets? Anyone can create a really pretty backtest historically, especially if you're doing manual backtesting. It's incredibly easy. But all my backtesting personally is done through code and clear exact logic, but it can still fall victim to overfitting. Maybe I optimize it too much, maybe I have a bias of some kind, etc. But adding these sort of filters or pains, for example, like execution times, a really quick example is for a particular strategy, I may add that it executes 2 bars late. Now, how much of my returns drop because of that? Was I just getting really lucky on this particular filter that those particular bars were the only bars where, the strategy worked profitably? Or if I add 2 bars latency, do I get a small reduction in returns, which is totally fine, but the overall strategy continues to work? All right, now the next one for the third is I try to backtest every strategy idea within 60 minutes. Now, this counts even the obviously bad ones. The reason for this is I've been caught off guard many times where I would maybe discount a strategy idea and, a couple of months later, I actually decide to backtest it and it's actually a super solid strategy. Now, these can be things like I had an idea about, trading on consecutive green bars. This was actually an idea I saw ages ago from Twitter and I backtested it pretty much within 60 minutes, give or take. Now, when I say within 60 minutes, not all backtests are going to be able to be completed from idea to code within 60 minutes, but that I at least get started within 60 minutes. Now, obviously, this comes with the obvious nuance that I have to be at my desk, etc. But if I am, I try and sit down and just at least get started so that it's not an idea that I've left on a notepad and I never touch again. Now, this won't save you from, 99% of these being complete garbage. But there will be 1%, and especially for me, that have led to some of my most profitable strategies just by being curious and actually taking action. And as an added bonus, constant testing keeps your research momentum going and it sparks new ideas. All right, the next one is I've never trust a backtest until I try to break it. Now, this is similar to my point before, but I just want to hone in a bit more on this. Now, this does sound counterintuitive. Most people try to optimize their strategies to look better, especially when most people normally backtest to see how they can increase their returns, for example, on a particular strategy. Now, that can be a component of backtesting, but most of the time, you actually want to see if a strategy will work on live markets. And the way to do that is by doing something like this, where you're trying to break it. I'm actively trying to find ways to make them fail. I stress test them with black swan events. I add extra slippage. I change parameter values, and this can be called parameter sensitivity testing as well. If I can easily break a strategy, it's most likely overfit, meaning that it's just being fit to historical data or noise, and it won't actually work on general data or what we would say is live data. And this obviously means that it probably won't work live. And we don't really want strategies like this. We want strategies that we are more confident on that will work on live markets because they are simple, logical, and have survived all our testing. Now, the fifth one, if we get rid of this, is that I study failed hedge funds more than successful ones. Just some of the classic themes as long-term capital management, Archegos, etc. I've probably spent just as much time reading about spectacular failures as success stories, because failures often teach you what not to do. Success stories are great to see what they used and what they excelled in, but failures often teach you way more from how they failed, what was their key mistakes, etc. Now, number 6, if we get rid of this box, is I play games / code while my bots trade. Now, as I mentioned, my strategies are pretty much all automated, at least on the futures markets, meaning there's a lot of time where I don't really need to be sitting at the desk or watching the markets execute. Now, this does kind of sound lazy on first thoughts, but hear me out. When you automate your trading, the worst thing you can really do is sit there watching every single tick, trying to be ready to help your algorithm or change it or, change a particular entry, etc. So I deliberately distract myself. Maybe I'll watch a movie, maybe I'll play video games, or I'll work on another coding project. Now, I will say for the most part nowadays, just because I run some other businesses, I'm most of the time coding, but I still try and fit in a game here or there, as that was my passion before. I used to play professionally on Overwatch. But what this does is it forces me to trust my systems and prevents emotional interference. Some of my best trading days have happened while I was completely focused on something else. And normally when, everything's going bad, your mind still draws you to the market to see what's going on, especially when SPY was, crashing between tariffs, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that. It can be good to sit there and be ready for risk management if needed. But most of the time, if you've automated your bots or portfolio correctly, you should already have risk measures in place. Now, number 7 is I label everything like I have amnesia. Now, this sounds a bit like a joke, but it really isn't. Every strategy I code, every backtest I do, every random idea gets documented. I assume future me will have zero memory of what current me was thinking. Code comments, documentation files, clear variable names, everything. I've even started using AI to help me generate documentation summaries, as it can be really good at reading correct code first and giving me a summary or documentation file. In my opinion, AI has still not got very good at coding straight from scratch, unless it's common ideas. Just in trading, I haven't seen it be the absolute best. Most of the time, it misses a lot of nuances. But if you're passing it correct code already, it can be really good at understanding it. Now, why do I do this? Because most of the time when I am coding, I've coded it at 2 a.m. and in 3 months, I'm really not going to understand what I was thinking or what I was trying to do or what was I trying to achieve. You'll most likely just have to trust me on this one. But if you've ever written essays before and then you've tried to go over your draft notes, for example, even a week later, you may have gaps in your knowledge or gaps in your memory where you're like, I had no idea what my next point was going to be. And this is very similar when you're doing your own code or your own trading. Now, the next one is I work to full blast DJ music. Now, it sounds a bit weird because most people like to work in silence, or at least that's what I normally hear from friends. But I've discovered, at least for me, I focus best with loud, energetic music, specifically normally DJ sets. If you listen to Fred again, absolute bangers. I really recommend his DJ set if you want to do something similar. But normally my key insight from this is however you got through writing essays in university or high school, is probably how you normally focus best nowadays. And for me, that was with music blasting. I normally had, a speaker with some music playing and I was just trying to grind through an essay for 5-6 hours. So try and figure out your pattern and stick with it. Most of the time, these flow states are triggered by small environmental factors. And for me, that's normally, like a widescreen monitor, really loud music, and just having the one page completely wide on my full screen monitor. So there's nothing else I can really distract myself with. Now, these habits might seem weird, but they've been absolutely crucial to my journey. Let me know in the comments if you have any weird habits, but that's everything from me for now.